evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order and ask that our district clerk leads us in the pledge.
Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for your patience. Our evening started around 6 p.m. with a work session followed by an executive session, and here we are. May I have a motion, please, that the agenda of December 9th, 2014 be approved as submitted? Questions or comments? Thank you. All those in favor? 7 in favor, none opposed. Thank you. May I have a motion, please, that the board approve the consent agenda that is in your packet?
So moved.
Questions or comments? Thank you. All those in favor? 7 in favor, none opposed. Thank you. Special reports. We have this evening a report by the Communication Committee.
Good evening. I'm glad to be here tonight to present our communication report. I have a few of my team members with me, so I'd like to first start with introductions. To my left is Maddie Rojas, who is our student representative. I also have Cheryl Moon, our teacher representative, and Kate Torak, our parent representative. In the audience, we have Angie Carpenter, who was our clerical representative, and Ed Turkowski, our administrative representative. We also had Dr. Putnam and Catherine Dean from the Board of Education on the committee, and Joan Miller, who couldn't be here tonight, but she was our community representative. Briefly, we're going to go through our charge. Our advisory team was charged with assisting the superintendent in developing a communication plan for the school district that builds collaborative partnerships to foster communication and understanding among the schools and the community. To give you a brief history of what we did over the past year, we started meeting in January of last year. We had 6 meetings between then and November. Some of the things that we focused on were reviewing our goals and tasks. We also developed a communication vision statement to guide our work. We reviewed and discussed all of the current communication systems that we use in the district. We put together a communication survey and spent quite a bit of time putting that together, going over the analysis of it, and then putting together our report and our recommendations. We wanted to share with you our vision statement. This was a lot of hard work on this committee. As you can imagine, with several writers on this team, there was a bit of wordsmithing that went on, but we're very proud of our statement. And we use this to kind of guide our work through the rest of our process. I'm just going to go through it quickly. The Penfield Central School District is committed to open, effective, and timely two-way communication with parents, students, staff, and community members. The district will be a community where all stakeholders take responsibility for and are proactively engaged in meaningful and respectful ongoing communication. At this point, we'd like to share some information about our survey, and Maddie and Cheryl are going to go through those results.
Okay, so over our time, we looked at many different communication surveys from other districts and created one for the Penfield, and it was available via the website or hard copy. We got 721 responses, which was a pretty good rate, and it showed that Penfield really valued communication and that we're doing a pretty well job, but there were some flaws.
Before I start, she's a student, right? We all be excited about that? Okay. The first question was basically the demographics of who answered the survey. So as you can see, the bright yellow line is that 70% were, not surprisingly, parents of current Penfield students. 19%, another big number, either still had, or former students and might have some too, so that could be combined together. And then 18% were community members that didn't have children in the district. Then the small numbers, I don't know if you can see them up there, private school, preschool kids, employees, or students who responded.
Okay, and this is a chart that shows us which people responded that associate with which school. So it looks that Penfield High School and Bay Trail Middle School had the most people, but really they're just more populated schools. So it was a pretty even split between all of the schools that participated.
Not a lot to explain here. Do you have internet access? 99% did, 1% didn't.
So this next one shows how they prefer to get their communication, and again, email was very easily seen, the most, the one they use the most, and then social media was a little bit less. Some for Facebook, but Twitter and LinkedIn, not so many users.
Okay, this question was, and I'll read it because I know not everyone can see it. How do you currently receive the majority of information from our schools and our district? And we asked if they pick the top 3 sources. So the greatest, not quite as predominantly great as some of the others, was email at 54%. District newsletters, not going away, 50%. Mailings, 37%. Website, 36%, and school newsletters, also 32%. The ones that are the little teeny tiny ones, kind of on the opposite end, the Channel 12, a little less than 2%, and other is a little less than 3%.
Okay, so now we asked how they preferred to receive it, which actually matched up on how they are currently receiving it, starting with email, then the district newsletter, mailings, the website, and then the school newsletters.
Okay, and this question was, if you are using the website, what are your top uses for it? And the big majority was at 61% use it for the calendar of events, things going on in the district. The parent portal had a little bit more than half at 51%. Was that for just IC? The parent portal. That's for the parent portal for Infinite Campus. Teacher websites at 40%. The staff directory to get in touch with teachers at 22%, and the district news at 20%.
All right, so now we asked, how well informed do you feel about issues, events, activities at your child's school? So this is pertaining to the parents, and majority of the people answered that they're pretty well informed, but our goal would be to get everyone very well informed.
How well informed do you feel about issues, events, activities in the school district? The choices, again, I know you can't see them, are very well informed, pretty well informed, somewhat informed, and then not very well informed. The top 3 together totaled 89%, and then the not well informed were 11%.
So now looking at the areas of interest, the one that people are most interested in is the information from the teachers at 57%, then the curriculum and educational program at 43%, the calendar at 42%, and then rationale for decisions and school closing/time sensitive. So sensitive, I'm sorry.
What has been your biggest challenge in obtaining the information you are seeking? 44% said none. They were happy with the info they receive, and we're glad about that. 15% said, I received the information, but I don't look at it. 15% is they don't know where to look, and 11% lack the time to look.
Continually, we found that parents would mostly appreciate weekly notices from teachers, while they only want about a monthly update from schools, and then either a monthly or quarterly update from the district-wide.
And so we took all of the information from the survey, which was very thorough and gave us a lot of good insight. I thought some positive, a lot of people did seem like they felt very well informed and were getting the information. But obviously, as with any communication plan, you can always up the ante a little. So we came up with 4 recommendations I'm just going to run through real quickly. One is about the district website. You know, your website is only as good as the information that you present on it. So, and websites are ever-changing communication tools, and, you know, it might be time for just a relook, maybe a redesign, maybe, you know, kind of reformatting where some of the pertinent information is based on what we found out from the survey. I think a lot of people want news and events. So is there a better place on the website to put that type of information? And so we recommend that the district form a small working committee to redesign, reorganize, and work with the host company. We talked a lot about the teacher pages, and I think we all have different uses for them as a student, a teacher, and a parent, just in terms of the 4 of us sitting here. But it seemed like there wasn't a consistent use of the teacher web pages across the board. And it could be that perhaps some teachers aren't aware of the capabilities of their own page or aren't real familiar with the system itself. So we recommended that the principals try to set some expectations for and work with your teachers just to try to encourage some consistency across the board. And then teachers can, you know, in turn share best practices. And then this idea of the PTA welcome wagon, I felt very fortunate because we moved into the district before my daughter started kindergarten, and I felt very embraced, and there were many, many open arms. So I really felt like we were well taken care of. But there certainly are, as we know, families who move in mid-year, different times of the year. Their children are in different grades. So we kind of thought to welcome them into the Penfield family, maybe come up with some sort of welcome wagon, which, you know, we could help the new families integrate themselves into the district, not just at the beginning of the year, but throughout. And then our last recommendation is around social media. We live in the world of immediate information and impatient people. So we all want to know what's happening now, and I need it right now. So because this doesn't exist yet with the district, we really felt like, again, based on the survey results, that it might be time to explore this. It's a big undertaking, but we would recommend a Facebook page and a Twitter account. Both would definitely need to have some strategy behind it, some content planning, and it's certainly not recommended to replace any other communication tools in the arsenal. This would just add to those. So we would recommend that the district research and establish a policy and some guidelines before launching these 2 social media sites.
And with all of those recommendations, we need to do quite a bit of work. We put together an action plan, which is pretty aggressive, with all of these initiatives really starting in the second half of this year. We feel that some of them will be easier to accomplish than others. Social media is, I think, the biggest hurdle we have to get over there is having a policy in place before we launch those different tools. Probably the most comprehensive and difficult one will be the website, and that's why we have a tentative date on there. Our goal would be to launch it in August because that would coincide with the beginning of the next school year. However, it depends on which path we take. If we decide to do a total rebuild, that certainly is going to take a longer time. We have thousands and thousands of pages that need to be migrated in terms of the content and called out for the ones that we don't need anymore. But at this point, that's our plan. Everyone has been notified whose name is up there, and we're looking forward to getting going on this. At this time, we'd like to take any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Board members, any questions or comments? Mark?
I think this is great, and you know, we see, where like I say, we don't have Facebook, and we've talked about this a lot, where we don't have some of these things that other districts have, and it makes someone else's Facebook the de facto district Facebook, and we need to get away from that. So I think we're right on track. For things like the websites, I guess one of the questions is, what kind of capabilities do we have at our disposal that we're not using now that might help with the community using the web page? As you mentioned, there's a lot of things out there, and getting access to teacher pages is important, but I really only have a few teachers that I'm really interested in following. So if, are there ways where, are there tools in the website where parents can tailor the website to their needs so they can have their favorites in a certain place aside from, browser settings?
I think that's something we would be working towards. What we heard a lot through the survey was you have a lot of great information, but I can't always find it. And so I think that's, our goal as part of the reorganization would be to put those things in more accessible places and make it a little more customizable for people.
Right? Any additional questions or comments?
I have one.
Sure.
So I just wanted to, because I get to sit up here and not with the committee. The committee started last year, but just if I could let the board know and the committee know, you were very welcoming when I joined as an acting superintendent, so thank you very much. And just wanted to give kudos to Maddie as well for being up there presenting herself very well as a Penfield High School student. So nice job. Mm-hmm. And I won't comment that my name is on 3 of those action items, so I don't know how that works, but we'll get it all done.
All right. Okay, well, on behalf of this board, I want to thank this committee because you've been meeting since last year and you've worked really hard. And I love the survey. Everyone knows I love surveys and what people are thinking. I love to know what they're thinking. So I like the responses. I think there's a lot of material there that we can use. And the action items, I think, are great. I'm glad that we have a timeline. I see the policy committee on there. So, and we already have our first handouts to look at. So thank you very much. We look forward to whatever we're going to launch first. I guess social media, I'm guessing, and any updates that you will have for us in the future. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, and we now move on to our visitor speaking time. Do we have anyone who wishes to address the board? All right, thank you, Marcia. So we move on to our student representative. Good evening, Aubrey.
Good evening. To start, Math League had a meet today in Newark, and there's rumors that a talent show is coming up, and while audition dates have yet to be announced, their possible contestants are urged to practice. The Pendulum just released its 2nd issue, and it's currently editing the 3rd. We're hoping to complete 3 issues before Christmas to be eligible for an award. Ambassadors is doing an Elfgram, and they do it every year, where you can buy for $1 a decorated bag with candy and bells to make a jingle, and you can send it to a friend anonymously or not. I discussed with Dr. Maloney the plans for the February pep rally, and we divided up the day, and we're hoping for it to be the Friday before February break, hoping that teachers are kind of winding down. And we discussed that the day would end about 12 with 25-minute periods. And to divide up, because we can't fit the whole school in the gym, we were going to have the underclassmen in the gym while the upperclassmen are in the auditorium, possibly with the speaker that Cool to Be Kind wants to bring in. But if the speaker doesn't work out, then they could be doing other fun games that could incorporate the stage. Like, I know Masterminds was thinking about doing a Jeopardy game, and that could be done on the stage. Also, I just came from the hockey game where they won 4-1 against Brighton, and they're also doing a community service project on December 14th to help the handicapped skate. Mr. Birkby, or Paul Birkby, won the Golden Apple Award from Channel 8, and it's supposed to air tomorrow at 5:30. Bay Trail had their Mix It Up and Make a Difference Day last week, and we're in the midst of winter concerts, but the ones that haven't happened yet are tomorrow at 7:30. There's the 6th grade Bay Trail one, and then they have a second 6th grade Bay Trail concert on Thursday at 7:30. Then the Penfield High School senior winter concert is 7:30 next Monday, and then Indian Landing has one at 7 next Tuesday, and Scribner has one at 7 next Wednesday. And lastly, students are eager to finish up their schoolwork because for the only 8 days that are left, not like we're counting.
All right, thank you, Aubrey. Board members, any questions or comments for Aubrey? All right, thank you so much. We now move on to Superintendent's report. Dr. Putnam?
Well, I will let everybody know that our student rep to the board stole a lot of my thunder, but it sounds much better coming from you for all the great things. So you'll see some repeats in my student and staff honors, but great minds think alike. So tonight we've got student and staff honors. We'll have Dr. Maloney with the course description guide. We have Sue Coomer, who's going to be presenting Medicaid Compliance Plan recertification. And we have a construction project update with Gary Huffman, as well as a calendar update, which will be back to me. So Mix It Up Days, as we just heard, Bay Trail Middle School Mix It Up and Make a Difference lunch days took place on December 3rd and 4th. Students made holiday cards for servicemen and women, collected donations for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, winter clothing for the Giving Tree, and personal care items for mothers in need. There was a stuffing drive at Harris Hill conducted for the fifth time this year. And the goods went to the Penfield food shelf, and the counselor, Michelle Smith, coordinated the effort, which brought in 393 boxes and bags of stuffing for the Thanksgiving and Christmas dinner distributions. We had a special donation at Harris Hill. I was there for this event, which is the Red Ribbon Week celebration, and students there at Harris Hill presented Special Olympian Amanda Vito, who was the guest speaker at the opening assembly with funds they raised. A total of $400 was collected to support her efforts through the Special Olympics of New York, and she gave a great speech to the Harris Hill students. It was really a great event. Community service project, as we just heard, the PHS varsity hockey team is going to be participating in the community service project on December 14th. The Gliding Stars Skate with Santa provides individuals with a disability an opportunity to enjoy skating. Team members will help the participants enjoy skating at the Webster Ice Arena. But what I didn't have in here is that they just won tonight 4-1, so it's great for our hockey team. And the Golden Apple Award, I was here and knew we were able to surprise Mr. Birkby that he was named the recipient of Channel 8's Golden Apple Award for being an outstanding educator. Mr. Birkby was nominated by senior Stephen Tracy, and the award presentation is going to be featured tomorrow night on News 8 at 5:30 p.m. So congratulations, Paul. And you should know, too, that from speaking with Kevin Dorn, he was the first school librarian ever to win a Golden Apple. So it happened here at Penfield. It's very cool. Scholar athletic teams, we try to present this after the fall season and want the community to know and the board to know that we had 12 teams qualify as scholar athletic teams this past fall. And to qualify as a scholar team, the majority of the participants must have an average of 90% or higher. And so just want to go through, I won't read out their GPAs because they're all over 90 and they're all great, but they are here on the slides. But just those teams that are impacted: cross-country boys, cross-country girls, our football team, our field hockey team, our girls golf team, the gymnastics team, the boys and girls soccer teams, the girls swim team, the girls tennis team, the volleyball team, and for boys and girls, both volleyball boys and girls were all scholar athletic teams through New York State. And in addition, just wanted to point out that our girls volleyball team took the Section 5 championship and made it all the way to the finals for states. So we're very proud of all of our teams. One of the great reasons that I do, it's a plug for Penfield, but why I moved here is this is exactly why. We've got great kids and great athletic teams, but the academic piece there is just amazing. So while we might not always win every single game, that's our goal, but that scholar athletic team is really just amazing, something that Penfield should be really proud of. That is the end of my updates, and I will turn it over now to Dr. Maloney for the course selection guide from the high school.
So this morning, the department chairs met with the counselors to share, to review the course description guide and review the courses. And as we were meeting this morning, I realized I've really come full circle with this entire process, starting as a teacher and working through advisement week, as a department chair, then as a curriculum director, designing and presenting new courses along with teachers, and now as the principal working through the whole scheduling process. So the course selection guide went live on the website last week, and each of the departments is represented. as well as EMCC. Course offerings are dependent upon enrollment and budgetary constraints. The course selection process really gives us a sense of student interest, student demand. Once selection numbers have been determined, departments work through the process with you as the board in terms of getting the new courses formally approved. So this slide, there's lots of bullets, there's lots going on here. The first bullet talks about the well-roundedness of our course selection guide. The second bullet talks about the rigorous options that we have, the honors, the advanced placement, the dual credit. The overall message of this slide, and I think something that we're very proud of here at the high school, is that the course selection guide really allows students to be the drivers of their education. Students are able to differentiate and individualize their own educational path through the multitude of offerings that we have. The fourth bullet talks about the supports that we have. Our Academic Support Center, our DICs, our study skills classes, our reading intervention classes, we offer a lot of opportunities to really support students as they work through their educational paths. Points of interest, the dual credit options, pages 13 and 14, there's these really nice charts that really outline at a quick glance the courses that are dual credit. And then that little symbol with the arrows, if you look through the course selection guide, that helps you quickly pick out those that are dual credit. The advanced placement options, we offer 14 advanced placement courses. And then our Futures Project Consortium, which is something that is unique to Penfield. And this year we're excited to announce 3 new courses that we're running in the Futures Project. So the new courses, here's the exciting stuff. Advanced digital photography. So the art department over the last few years has seen an increase in the number of students that are requesting independent studies in advanced digital photography. And they said, you know what, we're getting so many requests for independent studies, maybe it's time that we actually offer the course. So they've designed the course and we've put it in the book. Modern War Through Literature and Film. This is a new senior English elective course. There's some other courses that haven't been running the last few years due to a lack of student interest. So the English department kind of regrouped and pulled a few courses out and put Modern War Through Literature in. Computer Science and Software Engineering. Project Lead the Way has started a new sequence in computer science and software engineering, and this is the first course in that sequence. We actually have had for a few years a student kind of driven requests around, can we offer a computer programming course? Over the last few months, the state education department has really put a push on computer programming courses and said that districts can offer students to earn their 3rd credit in math or science through computer programming. So we're really excited about this class. Right now, typically a Project Lead the Way course is a dual credit course. And Project Lead the Way, because this course is new, they still haven't worked out the dual credit piece, and it has the potential to be an AP course as well. So we're still waiting to get final word from Project Lead the Way. So we'll keep you updated on that. And then our future projects courses. College preparatory math actually ran this year, not at Penfield, but at East Rochester. And it's a 4th-year math class that really preps students for the Accuplacer. So students that are going to community college typically have to take the Accuplacer prior to entering, and it determines what math class they take going in. This course would prepare students for that. Our economics course, our economics honors, that is SUPA credit, Syracuse University credit. Mark Dozer has decided that he'd like to try it as a futures project course and try it online. I think it's a great idea. And then Calculus 3, Jen Weber has taught Calculus 3 for a number of years. And Calculus 3 really is the perfect course to have as a futures project course because there is a demand from other districts for Calc 3 because we're one of the few districts that offers Calc 3. Right now, our Calc 3 that is in-house is an MCC credit course. We're still working with MCC on the online piece as to whether or not that will be dual credit. So just an overview of our scheduling process. Teacher Advisement Week actually ends tomorrow. I think it closes at 7 a.m. So the teacher portal has been open for recommendations. Teachers have been working with students on those. Also, we have been working with Bay Trail, the 8th grade teachers, to begin that transition. They're also going to be doing recommendations coming up. The student portal for 9th through 11th graders will open Monday, and the holiday break kind of threw us for a loop because it's not typically as long as it is. So we decided to try, this year we're going to try and leave the portal open until after the holiday break so that families have time, you know, it's a crazy time of year, so that families have more time to sit down and go through that process. And then January 15th through the 20th, the 8th grade students will be able to go through. January 14th, 8th grade students will be able to come here with their families, and the department chairs do a nice overview of what the 9th grade course offerings are. Counselors do sit down and meet with all students and review the recommendations and student selections. In the third quarter, there's a review of the recommendations by teachers, just in case there's been any changes as time has gone on. A letter is sent home in the spring outlining the course request, just to remind families. And then there's that final opportunity to make changes, and then the system is locked down so that we can begin building that schedule, get you numbers that you need in terms of the budget piece, with the goal of teachers leaving here in June with their schedules for the following year. The drop ad, a few years ago, this was added, the limited drop ad, it really solidifies that schedule, keeps the movement to a minimum. For the first 2 weeks of school, we have that limited drop ad. There are exceptions if a student is missing a required course, wants to increase the rigor, or add an additional class. So that's kind of just our scheduling process, kind of in a nutshell. Any questions about the course selection guide or scheduling for this year?
Thank you, Leslie. Board members, questions or comments? Camille?
I have a question, although first I'll comment that I think it's always nice to hear about the new courses, and they sound great, and I hope that the kids sign up for them, and I know the counselors do a good job making sure they know that they're available. The computer science and software engineering, you said it was maybe going to be dual credit. Would that be through MCC or?
No, typically Project Lead the Way courses are dual credit through RIT.
Oh, okay. And then if it wasn't dual credit, though, it could be an AP course?
It could be an AP course and dual credit. AP, the College Board is actually changing the current computer science exams that are offered and restructuring. So I think that's why Project Lead the Way hasn't made a definite commitment, is because they're waiting to see those changes. We're actually sending 2 teachers to training. One of the teachers goes to training in January, and we're hoping we'll have more information when he gets back.
Okay, I didn't know that a course could be both dual credit and AP.
Well, it wouldn't be an AP course in the sense like the AP courses that we have now where it's AP physics. The students would have the ability at the end of the course to decide to take the AP exam.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions or comments? Catherine?
Quick question. For SUPA, I know that Syracuse University, what's the PA?
Project Advance?
Thank you, because we couldn't figure it out. Thanks.
Any additional questions or comments? Great, thank you. I do have just, well, for the SUPA, do we ever get requests from students with help with finances? I know with the AP, with the fee for every exam, there is always the opportunity for students to go to a counselor, and I think we have a plan in place if they need help. Do we ever get requests for help with SUPA?
And I'll look to Tom on this one. I haven't had any requests this year.
We have had requests in the past. Syracuse University works with us sometimes, but it's a tougher piece. Same with the dual credit with RIT or MCC. It's trickier to get any support for the college credit.
Okay.
So we have worked in the past on some rare occasions. They've been helpful, but it's much easier to get the AP. Basically the waiver for students with socioeconomic issue.
Okay, thank you. And I'm guessing there is going to be a notice out to the parents about, the couple of weeks where they can look at the course schedule with their students and.
Yep, there actually is going to be a Connect Ed message coming soon.
Okay, thank you. And my last question, I love the new class about modern war and film and literature. I think that's really interesting. But I was wondering, usually books come to us for approval, so will movies come to us for approval?
Oh, that's a good question.
I can.
Sorry.
Man, I figured I left the high school principal behind. That's a good question. We don't typically run, we have not in the past run videos through the board based on the policy is focused on textbooks. So we do have typically they do get vetted through the building administration in regards to ratings of movies, where we stay away from any R-rated movies, but we have not in the past put movies through, because we have 2 film classes right now running that one of those 2 film classes does view film in the class. So it's a question that I think policy committee could probably talk about outside of this meeting. We just happen to be on that committee, but
Thank you.
no problem.
All right, that's it. Thank you so much for
Thank
coming and
you.
presenting this to us.
Thank you.
Really like all the information. Thank you.
And we'll change places there, and we have Sue Coomer, who's going to present on the Medicaid compliance program. So thank you, Sue.
No problem, and I'm so glad to see so many people here tonight to learn about Medicaid. Only joking. Annually, well, let me just step back a little bit. Some of you have been through this before, so I don't want to go over all the aspects of the Medicaid recertification plan, but just by way of reminder, what we commonly refer to as the Medicaid program here in Penfield is actually referred by the state as a school supportive health services program, otherwise known as Medicaid. And as a district that is submitting claims for the school's supportive health program, we are encouraged to have a compliance program. And we do not meet the threshold presently for being required to have one. That would mean that we had submitted and received claims of $500,000 or more. In the 13-14 school year, our claims total was $314,593. So we don't quite meet the $500,000 threshold, but we do have a Medicaid compliance committee, and that committee comprised of our compliance officer, Patty Gallagher, myself as the Medicaid coordinator, Bill Maloney, our treasurer, and Gwenda Buckman, our director of special education. That group felt that it was wise and best practice, even though not required, to look through our compliance program in all 8 areas that the state articulates, to take a good look each year as to how we are demonstrating compliance in each of those required areas. So in your packet today, you have the self-assessment tool that the Medicaid Office of the Inspector General has submitted to the field. We've worked through that annually now for the last 3 years, just about this time of year, because recertification needs to happen by the end of December. So we take a look at our written policies and procedures. We look at whether we have an employee designated with responsibility for compliance, and obviously Patty Gallagher is sitting right there with that responsibility. We look at our training and education, our communication lines for reporting waste, fraud, abuse, disciplinary policies if we were to discover someone who was engaging in any fraud or abuse, a system of routine notification of compliance, of risk areas in our compliance plan, a system for responding to compliance issues, and a policy of non-intimidation. So in your packet, you can see the pieces of policy and the documents that actually support each one of those 8 areas. But one of the things we felt that was really lacking for us, and we're going to continue to expand on this, we're having handbooks and manuals for our service providers to refer after the annual training. So annually, and some of you have sat through, Lisa and Mark and others have sat through me sitting down with you and going over this is our compliance plan. We do that with all of our service providers as well, the speech language pathologists, the occupational therapists, the physical therapists that provide Medicaid services. But you and I both know sometimes when you walk out of a training, the question you have is 3 weeks later or a month later, or how do I do that? So in your packet, you'll see an expansion, enhancement of our compliance plan for this year, which is the Speech Language Pathology Service Providers Medicaid Compliance Manual. And I have to say, after putting it all together and feeling quite good about myself, I sat down and was just talking to Gwenda the other day and said, oh my goodness, I left out this whole section on ICD-10s, which is a international classification of disease that we're going to be going to in October of 2015. So there'll be more exciting passages left to come in this manual. But our goal is to provide this to our speech pathologists because they're our largest claiming group. And then next year, stay excited, because next year I'm hoping to have a PTOT manual as well that will give some real direction to that group. And then put it together with our training PowerPoints and with our 8-point compliance self-assessment tool. And I think we have a nice articulation of our compliance procedures. So with that, with your approval, we'll go ahead and actually certify with the state our plan for the 2014-15 school year.
Right. Thank you, Sue. Any questions or comments, board members? Yes, Barb.
As the newly retired speech language pathologist on the school board, and having been very much a part of Medicaid reporting, and I think this is wonderful that you put in all this time and effort into, because I know it's very time consuming, and I just wanted to say thank you for all that you do. And so this new speech language pathology Medicaid compliance manual is strictly for the Penfield
It is.
speech?
It is strictly for our speech pathologists, because within our district, we use a management system called the Kinney system. And the K system, or Kinney management, is not used by some other districts. They use another product called Medicaid Direct, which ties into the IEP Direct. So because of that, there's some very specific procedures that go with that. And I should have mentioned, one of the other points that I wanted to say is, in your packet also, I included all the Medicaid alerts for 2014. And it's just a tip of the iceberg that this is a continually evolving program that used to be managed by the Department of Education, is now managed by the Department of Health. And as such, the medical model that the Department of Health is asking schools to comply with is significantly out of sync with what a school looks like. And a classic example of that is reporting along encounter-based sessions. Contemporaneous notes, which in our county is defined as being entered within 48 hours, have to be on an encounter-based session. So an encounter-based session, one of the requirements is the moment that the session began and the moment the session ended. And it has to tie to a coding, a billing code, otherwise known as a CPT code, the same kind of thing when you go into your doctor and he circles something on a little paper and it says you have strep throat and it has a certain CPT code. It has to tie to that. So in the example of a speech language pathologist, for example, if they were to assign a group, they were working with a group and they assigned a code of 92508, which means a group session, it must be 30 minutes in length. That doesn't seem problematic until one of your little pumpkins doesn't want to come until they finish putting sprinkles on their holiday ornament. And that ties up 2 minutes, and it makes it an unbillable session. So there are a number of small details that curtail the claims that we can actually submit. And I really highlight that because that whole medical model works very well in a clinic, I'm sure. But schools have little kids, and they don't operate from 9 o'clock to 9:30 on the dot. And it's just not the way our system works. The other confounding variable that is new and has not come out in an alert, but has come through our, it's called PCG, the Public Consulting Group that is putting together our cost report, is they're now requiring what's called total service encounters as of July 1st. And that's going to change our world pretty significantly, because it means that every encounter that they have with every child with an IEP, every speech-language pathologist would have to record every single one of those encounters. Presently, we're recording Medicaid students only to maximize our speech-language pathologists' contact time with students. So that's just another one of the evolutions that we're not really sure where we're going to go with that one, but it's another piece of this constantly evolving program. So,
And one last comment that I need to put out there, that you are doing this for our in-district speech-language pathologists, but as a BOCES longtime speech pathologist, I also had to submit all of my Medicaid things for students that I serviced in Penfield, so that Sue's also doing all of that with students that are at other agencies or
Absolutely.
whatever.
Absolutely.
So it's a lot of work, as well as what the speech people at OTPTs, that's additional paperwork and time. I just wanted
So if you ever want to see an interesting assortment of storage boxes, come to my office. It's Medicaid heaven in there.
Thank you. Yes, Mark?
I still remember our training session.
There you go.
And it was very impressive and very eye-opening in the sense of how much we have to do as a district that people don't think about, that really are, that steps away from the traditional interpretation of what education is. I mean, it's
Exactly.
certainly an important part of education, but a lot of people don't think about that. And the depth of the rules and regulations you have to deal with is far beyond what I want to deal with. One of the things in a way we talked about in the past was some districts, or there are a few districts that have kind of chosen not to do this anymore because the administrative costs were getting so high that it wasn't worthwhile. How close are we to that point?
I think it's hard for us to judge yet because, believe it or not, the cost report that will determine I should step back. We've been paid for claims, but it's an iffy payment because we were paid on an old system, everyone in the state, not just us. In 2011-12, they began a process called Cost Expenditure Report with a group called PCG out of Boston. They're supposed to be determining each district's individual cost rather than, for each service, rather than saying a session for speech-language therapy in New York State is going to cost X. Because the theory is it costs more to deliver that service in Manhattan than it does in Macedon or Penfield. So with that in mind, they rolled it out in 11-12. We submitted it. We did 12-13. We just finished 13-14. And we haven't heard back about 11-12 yet. So it's in process. There's a massive amount of data that they're collecting. In fact, in the 13-14 cycle, they had us go back and redo 11-12 and 12-13 with regard to BOCES tuition and split out just the Medicaid services from the general lump tuition costs that we pay, which was interesting because the bills don't come that way. So we had to do some work with BOCES, and they were wonderful. They were fantastic helping us to figure that out. But we really don't know what we're going to get in final cost yet until that 11-12 process, 12-13 process is really finalized. And that calendar hasn't been published.
And if their cost estimates are lower than what we actually reimbursed, we'd have to pay that back.
Exactly. Exactly. Yep. Actually, we don't have to pay it back, we just won't get more. So, but you're right.
Any additional questions or comments? All right. Thank you, Sue.
Thank you as always. It was lovely to see you. And if I don't see you between now and then, happy holidays to all of you.
Thank you. Happy holidays to you. Board members, this is on our agenda for approval for later on this evening.
Back to me?
Yep.
All right. So I'm going to ask Gary Huffman from Campus Construction to join us. And while we don't have any slides, the board did get a pretty lengthy packet that we did print to share with you for construction updates. And I'm going to turn it over to Gary, and then the board will have an opportunity, too, to ask any questions that we have had over time around the construction updates. And I will just share, the Communications Committee was very supportive in having me join them this year, and so was Campus Construction and the OACM meetings that Mark Sansucci oversees in regards to all of the changes we've had, and the board's aware of many of the things out of our control that took place in terms of finding vermiculite and such. And so I just do appreciate Gary joining us this evening to share out the updates. Thanks, Gary.
Good evening.
Good evening.
It came to mind, actually came to Mark's mind, that in previous projects we've done monthly updates to you, and we kind of got away from that. So Mark has asked that I start coming each month back to you and just update you on progress of the project. So this is my first of many visits coming forward. We've covered a lot of ground this year. For the most part, very good ground. Indian Landing, I touched on that before. That's behind us at this point. We've done a lot of phases as we've gone through these different portions of the project. Indian Landing is behind us. That was a success. That was done over the summer. Scribner entrance. Scott moved back in. District's using that full use. And the Bay Trail Transformer. So that project's closing out at this point as well. That's getting behind us. Bay Trail Gym, as we all know, has been a lot of work, a lot of patience on the district's part after encountering all the vermiculite in the interior spaces of the masonry walls that surround the building. But as of last week, the district is now back in use of that gym. We kind of phased it in. The district was using it evenings last week, starting last Monday, the 5th, the 1st of December. The district started using the gymnasium in the evening, and the district was using the locker rooms, boys and girls locker rooms, all day long. As of the 5th, last Friday, the district was using it day and night. So we're there now. So district is in full use of that space, lockers and gym. There is that small storage addition that's being built next to it. That'll be turned over by the end of this month, early January. And so by the end of January, punch list finished, we should be wrapping up. Hooray, the Bay Trail Gym. The next phase that we're looking at is at SED right now, has not been approved as of yet, is the high school field lighting project. That's forthcoming. That'll be in 2015. We right now project, cross our fingers, SED is going to approve that by the end of this month or no later than by mid next month. The issue with SED is that they have lost their mechanical reviewer. He retired 2 weeks ago, and they haven't replaced him. And our state budget office has taken that money away from Carl Thurneau's department. So right now he doesn't have anybody fill those shoes. So it's causing a great ripple effect across New York State right now with school projects. We were far enough along, however, we're hoping that they get to us sooner than later. It's not a lot we can do at this point. So anyways, we're optimistic that'll get approved here in the coming weeks, and then we will go out to bid. And that work is to begin. Actually, what we did, back up a little bit, what we did was we put out to bid, we got Carl's permission to put the mercury abatement, the floor at the high school East Gym, out to bid early. Numbers came in fantastic. We bid it at the right time. We had a nice upside impact to the budget as a result of that really good bid number that came in. And we're going to start that work first week of May. And we've worked that out with Pete Shambo and the athletic, or the PE department, and we can get in there in May and do that abatement work so we can get an early start on that and get the gym ready for fall, for September. And so anticipating approval, we'll keep on moving on that one. And the security project was just recently submitted to SED. And so that one will take at least 6-7 months for review. And then we'll see where we go from there as far as timing the bid. You have with you our monthly report. We issue those each month. I'd like to at least address one concern, and that is, and some of you may have not been through a capital project of this magnitude before, but what we do is, as we go through the projects, changes occur, whether we encounter vermiculite in the walls, we find digging in a hole in the ground when we put foundations, we find rock, something, there's changes that happen that we can't anticipate. And those are then identified as an issue. And in this report, you'll find a budget summary for each and every phase that we've been doing. Each and every phase has an issue log attached to it. The issue log is an item, is a list, it's a running account of any changes we anticipate. If we see a change and we think there's a potential cost impact, we assign an issue number to that, we put a description, and then we pursue that. And sometimes those issues end up $0. Sometimes they end up as a credit. Sometimes they end up as an add. Either way, we vet it out. And those each, whether it's a credit or an add, we as your construction manager vet those changes from the contractors. We'll request, we'll give them the information for them to price it out because it's outside of their contract. And then we will vet that out and we will analyze it for accuracy and if that's a good number. I would say 9.9 times out of 10, we push back on each of them. Rarely do they get it right the first time, but occasionally they do. And it'll be a fair number, but most of the time they don't. And we have to vet it out for if it's complying with the general conditions, and the general conditions identify to the contractor what the overhead and profit is allowed by contract, and what they're allowed to charge for insurance, what they're allowed to charge for office expense, that sort of thing. It's identified in the contract ahead of time, so they don't get to make that number up as they go through. They're married to that number throughout the project. And then we also vet it out for time and materials. And if I can't answer it, I'll go to my estimators and have them look at it, and I'll have them analyze it. So at the end of the day, as the Board of Ed is asked to do for each change order, if those changes end up as a change order to the contract, and we come back to you and ask you for your approval on those change orders, those items have been scrutinized very closely, very closely. We also involve the architect. We want the architect to look at it and make sure that the scope of work is correctly identified, that what is being quoted wasn't in the original contract documents. So it goes through a lot of filters and through a lot of scrutiny before it ends up as a change order to you. So I hope that you feel confident that everybody's doing their job and due diligence to make sure any changes that come forward to you have already been vetted out thoroughly, and we feel confident that that's the correct number that we're asking you to approve in that change order. And then at the end, when we're all done, the contracts will be closed, the work is finished, and then we're done with that phase of the project. So this report will identify for you, for each phase, budget summary. It'll give you a current status of the project itself, where we are. It'll give you a schedule so you can see where we are tracking. And it also lets you know if there's been any safety events. Fortunately, we've had no lost time accidents, no safety, no injuries, so that's always a good thing. We always strive for that, a perfect record on that. So we also identify that in the report as well.
Great. Thank you, Gary. Thank you for
Absolutely.
coming this evening and providing us with this report. I do recall several binders on my shelves, of monthly reports, so this is very welcome. Board members, any questions or comments? Yes, Barb.
Gary, I'm looking at some of the pictures here from the Bay Trail. renovation, and I see that the girls' locker room has a new water bottle fill station.
Yes.
Do the boys have it in theirs?
Yes.
Just wondering because of Title IX, you know, I don't.
Yeah, oh yeah. And what they do is, actually what they do is they have a little digital readout on them. And so as people fill their bottles, it triggers and it counts. So it actually tells you how many water bottles are being saved from going in a landfill. And
Oh,
you can read it
wow.
right on the output there's a digital output on each of those machines.
And is this just at Bay Trail? This is unique to Bay Trail, or do we have
Right
one?
now, right.
Okay.
We
It's-
actually have them
it's-
at the high school as well.
Oh, you do?
Oh, you do?
Yeah, so before this project, yep. Last year's senior class purchased one, which was going up near the Commons. And then in the athletic hall, there's one there as well.
Thank you.
How was it?
Catherine?
Yes. How was that water refill station different than just a drinking fountain?
It's larger. It allows you to put a bottle in there. A drinking fountain, you have to tip it and push the.
Okay.
And this one is, you actually bring the bottle into it and it fills.
So it's got enough of the height there?
Yes, it does.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Lisa?
Hi, Gary.
Hi.
I really appreciate you going through that process for me, being kind of the newbie, because every time we get these change orders, I feel like I send Mark, like, did we already approve that money? Like, who's doing that? So I really, for me, really appreciate that you going through that, because I always feel like I don't understand, you know, kind of like where that money's coming from, and have we approved that already? And so, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any additional questions or comments?
And anytime you have a question about it, you can always ask me. I will come here every month and I can explain anything that's happening on the project to you and address any concerns you may have.
Right. Thank you for coming. I do have
Absolutely.
a question, which I remember asking one time. What is with the showers in Bay Trail? Like, why?
I'm sorry, what?
The showers in Bay Trail. They don't have a pool.
It's a code requirement. Not always does the state require things that make sense, but this is one of them that doesn't make sense that they do require.
Okay, so I guess then it
We
makes
have to do it.
as much sense as the time they take to approve our project.
Yeah, they would not approve the project without them. If you're doing renovations of this magnitude in a locker room, you have to have showers. They will not approve it otherwise.
Okay,
They will say, put it in if it's not shown.
all right, all right. Well,
I know they end up as storage spaces or something. People
yeah,
don't
I mean,
use them.
talk about wasting money there.
I know.
You know, so wow. Well, thank you. I think it's great to have you here, and I'm glad that you're going to come every month.
Absolutely.
Because the 7 of us cannot go visit you every month, so it's much easier to have you here. Board member, I want to remind you that next week we have a day where we are going on building tours to look at the different projects we're working on. So, you know, check that is on your calendar. Thank you for coming this evening.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thanks,
You
Gary.
too. Thank you.
So our last update for me is a request that the board will see later in their packet when they have a motion. And that's around, we're requesting an additional conference day for teachers in grades K through 5, which would mean no school for K through 5 students on Monday, April 27th. The background for why we're asking this additional time is going to be used to score the New York State ELA assessments completed by our 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders. And this is an impact of a condensed administration and grading window set forth by New York State Education Department. So just as what it would do is it would avoid teachers out of the classroom just prior to the New York State math assessment. And it would avoid complications, which we do run into with trying to get subs into the building on a consistent basis for all 4 buildings, because teachers are the ones who have to grade those assessments. So if students aren't in the building, we're able to pull all teachers to support and use their teacher data to grade those assessments. Just as an example, last year, the testing window for ELA ended April 3rd, and we had to give the graded assessments to BOCES by April 30th, so almost a month. And then the math test began on April 30th. So teachers were out of the class to grade, but we had a longer window to administer the test, to grade the test, and then some time before the math test started. This year, the ELA test ends April 16th, and we have to get those grades turned around to BOCES by April 29th. So it's about a 2-week window as opposed to a 4-week window. And then the math test begins April 27th. So really listening to teachers, working through the principals, and Jim Pfeiffer, who's not here tonight, our request is that if we can have a conference day, then teachers aren't being pulled out of their classroom right before the math assessment is given. Our belief is that the teacher in the classroom before the math test supports the student's learning and focus, as well as not having to have a substitute in the classroom when we're administering these state assessments. Instead, it does make it more helpful to have your actual teacher nearby, somebody you know, administering the assessments. So that is a request that the board will see later as a motion. Yeah.
Is there any way that we can use substitutes or certified in those areas to do the grading and have our teachers continue to teach?
We can do just about anything. The reality is, though, the concern is that teachers in our district get those grade levels do receive a state gross score from New York State. So the concern typically is having someone who's a substitute doing the actual grading, who has maybe a different viewpoint. It's just a concern. I would share that concern. I imagine, although I haven't asked that question to PEA, I'd support their concern that paying subs to come in and grade the test might not be the best thing, because they have no connection to the test whatsoever. If you're vested interest in the test, you're not supposed to be grading your individual student's test, but if you're grading a test of a Penfield student and you work in Penfield, you might just take it a little bit more seriously. It's a concern. I'm sure there are incredible subs out there who would take it extremely important and grade those tests to the best of their ability, but that concern is we open it up to turn over our testing. What we can do, and we have looked at in the past, is do some district-wide scoring through BOCES. That's another question that comes up on basically working with a BOCES to do grading. We do believe, Jim and I do believe that this changes from the state to shorten the window in turnaround time is a push to move to cross-district grading. Penfield has some history with that. We did years before do some cross-district grading through BOCES. It didn't work out well for us. Some tests were lost. It was concern around misplacing tests, and it's just a lot more exams and people from across the county grading them. We feel we do a better job grading in-house in Penfield, and most of the other districts around us do the same thing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right, any additional questions or comments? Catherine?
Well, so far so good with weather and snow days and all that stuff from the perspective of being in school, you know, the required amount of days. Would this have any kind of impact, especially since it would just be K through 5 and it wouldn't affect the whole district?
It does have an impact on I don't even want to talk about snow the night before a snowstorm, but we had 4 days built in. This would lower it to 3 days. So everybody is safe as long as we don't have more than 3 snow days. If we have more than 3 snow days, we're in a conversation that we are in. In years past, we've had 3 days on the calendar for snow days built in. We've had 4 days in the calendar built in. And just like any district in New York State, if you go beyond that, then you got to take a look at your calendar. The day has to come from somewhere.
Okay, yeah.
And then it's a conversation around shortening February break, shortening April break, lengthening the school year. It's what Buffalo's going to be dealing with. We know that. I mean, with what they dealt with.
Yeah.
So it's rare. I'll just let the community know too, as much as certain people love snow days. I have 2 kids I want in school every single day, so let's come to school. All right?
Okay. All right, well, thanks.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah,
it does have an impact
well,
around
right,
the snow
and it
days.
has to be accounted for if you use up the snow days.
Yep.
But you have a plan if that were the case.
Yeah, the plan would be we'd have to take a look at the days. It would probably lengthen the school. At the end of the school year, there are some days that kids aren't in session. we could potentially have to add a day of student connection back into the end of the school year.
And would it be just for the K through 5? Because they're the only ones getting this conference day.
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. We'd have to take a look.
Depend on how you structured it.
Depends on how we structure it. So there's some.
Well, hopefully, we won't even have to deal with that. I just wanted
Yep.
to know.
But the reality is, you know, I joke about the snow days, but so everybody knows, obviously, safety of our students and staff comes first. If we do need to have a snow day, we'll definitely be calling a snow day. So,
Okay,
All
very
right.
good, yes, thank you.
no problem.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Putnam. There's nothing wrong with snow days, really.
Oh, see, that's the only thing in this job that I'm terrified of is the decision for a snow day. Everything
No,
else.
it's a very easy decision. All right, board members, we are at the bottom of page 3 of your agenda, and our first item is facilities, approval of agreement for building conditions survey. We have a series of, we have the regulation of the Commissioner of Education that require that school districts periodically complete a building condition survey and 5-year capital facilities plan. The goal of the 5-year plan is to collect, coordinate, analyze, and prioritize facility infrastructure and building program needs on a district-wide basis. The plan must be completed in cooperation with a licensed architect, and building aid is available to support the cost of developing the plan. This plan must be submitted to SED in January 2016. Now, the board has established a Facilities Advisory Committee to assist the board in reviewing and making recommendation in support of the construction, revitalization, and maintenance of the physical plan. This committee is guiding the development of the building condition survey and will also be prioritizing the 5-year plan. Accordingly, additional studies such as arc flash testing of electrical services, studies of the cogent plan studies, or conceptual designs may be necessary. These services will be in addition to the basic fee. May I have a motion, please, that the superintendent of schools be authorized to enter into agreement with SEI Design Group for the purpose of completion of a building condition survey and 5-year capital facilities plan as described in your agenda? Questions or comments? Thank you. All those in favor? 7 in favor, none opposed. Thank you. You have a series change orders in your agenda. These change orders have been reviewed by and are supported by architect Vic Tomiselli, project manager Gary Huffman, clerk of the works Alan McNiff, and assistant superintendent for business Mark Sansucci. May I have a motion, please, that the change order as described in your agenda be approved? Questions or comments? Thank you. All those in favor? 7 in favor, none opposed. Thank you. Property tax collection status. As of November of each year, town tax collectors have finalized their property tax collections for the school levy and remitted all funds collected to the school district and submitted all unpaid bills to the county. Attached to the status of the Penfield Central School District tax levy authorized by the board on August 12th, additions and cancellations to the authorized levy and collections through November 30th, 2014. May I have a motion, please, that the Board of Education approve the 2014-2015 property tax collection status, including all additions and cancellations made to the original approved levy amount? Questions or comments? Yes, Kevin.
I do have a question. Is a little over $1 million about typical for taxes still owed? Sorry for the late question mark.
No, that's quite all right. Last year, I'm flipping through my packet, so remind me what the percentage unpaid at this year is. It's 97 in those.
The total, yeah, almost 98%
Yeah,
paid.
and last year's was 97.87, so virtually identical. Last year's total submitted unpaid was about $1,042,000, so
It's been
it's
pretty
almost
flat.
identical to
Okay.
last year's.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Any additional questions or comments? All those in favor? 7 in favor, none opposed. Thank you. Approval of dental administration rates. As part of the district's ongoing efforts to restrain the growth of the cost of employee benefits, Penfield has participated since 2010 in a joint initiative with 18 other school districts to negotiate the cost of the administration of the district's dental plan. The premiums we pay are individual to our school district and are made up of 2 key components: claims expense and administrative costs. The current agreement for administrative services expires in 2014. Renewal rates for administrative services were negotiated by the Webster School Districts and Gallagher Benefit Services on behalf of the participating districts. This resolution approves continued participation in the dental plan and approves the administrative cost per contract per month for the 2015 and 2016 plan years. The rate had been frozen for 3 years at $2.25 per contract per month. It increases to $2.32 for 2015 and $2.39 for 2016. You have a resolution in your agenda. And at this time, may I have a motion, please, that the Board of Education approves this agreement as written in your agenda? Questions or comments? Thank you. All those in favor? 7 in favor, none opposed. Thank you. This brings us to our policy review, and I think, Camille, you're leading this.
So we have an unusually large group of policies this time. We have 6 for review, up for a first read, and just a reminder that we can have as many reads as we need based on community and board questions and input. 5 of the 6 policies, though, well, they all relate to special education. They were originally adopted in 2002. And then they were sort of revised in 2007 or readopted because that's when we did an entire manual review. So they were very much due for some just updating of language, the policy language, so that it matched closer the New York State regulations, which, as you can imagine, over the years with special education, there have been little tweaks and changes. And this was a lot of work on the part of Glenda Buckman and her staff, possibly, and maybe Jim Pfeiffer. So we appreciate her looking through these, and you'll notice that some of them are complete rewrites and some of them are just tweaks. The one policy that doesn't date back to 2002 is the one that we adopted in 2012, Response to Intervention, because that was a newer program that the district adopted. And that had very minor tweaks. What doesn't print out and isn't visible in your copies is that every time a policy has regulations, which most of these policies do, they have extensive regulations backing the policy up. On the online policy manual, there's a hyperlink that says, click here for regulations. For some reason, that doesn't print. So I think one of the questions we had was, should we say in the policy, see the attached regulations? And we're tending not to do that because the most current policy manual is our online one. It used to be a paper one, but technology is, that's the way we're going. The online manual is the most up-to-date one. So most of them do say, it's pretty clear if you look at it online, but unfortunately it doesn't print. But we will look into the vendor who supplies us with our policy manual online and ask why it doesn't print when we print out a policy, because you'd want to know that the regulations are attached. And if we can't print it, then yes, I think we would want to say within the policy, please see the attached regulations. So that's all I have to say for these right now. They're in first read, and we'll continue to look at them in committee based on questions that we have, or that we receive.
At this time, any questions or comments about these policies? Okay, you know that they're going to come back in front of us and will be posted on the website for the community to see. So, and if anybody wishes to comment about them, they can do so by contacting the board. Thank you, Camille. We now move on to the approval of Penfield Paraprofessional Association contract. A contractual agreement between the acting superintendent of schools and the Penfield Paraprofessional Association has been reached. The settlement is within parameters established by the Board of Education and is recommended by Acting Superintendent Putnam and Assistant Superintendents Gallagher and Sansucci. The 3-year agreement between the district and the Penfield Paraprofessional Association covers the period July 1st, 2013 through June 30th, 2016. The agreement calls for increases of 2% for 2013-2014, 2% plus 30 cents an hour for 2014-2015, and 2% and 25 cents an hour for 2015-2016. This agreement also reflects an increase in healthcare contributions. At this time, may I have a motion, please, to authorize the acting superintendent to enter into an agreement with the Paraprofessional Association contract as described above? Questions or comments? Thank you. All those in favor? 7 in favor, none opposed. Thank you. Medicaid compliance plan certification and approval. Penfield's Medicaid compliance program must be certified annually by December 31st. The board has reviewed the compliance program's self-assessment tool developed by the Office of the Medicaid Inspector General. The document has been reviewed by the District Medicaid Compliance Committee, and no substantive changes have been made from prior years. Approval is recommended. May I have a motion, please, that the board recertify the Medicaid compliance plan? Questions or comments? Thank you. All those in favor? 7 in favor, none opposed. We have donations totaling $3,912 for items in the 2014-2015 budget. They have been granted to the district by the Cobbles Elementary PTA for Arts in Education and from the high school for an RIT Technology Award. May I have a motion, please, that the Board of Education approve an amendment totaling $3,912 to the 2014-2015 budget as shown above, the amount submitted both as revenue and expenditure items, and express its gratitude to the donors for the generous support of Penfield Schools. Questions or comments? Thank you. All those in favor? 7 in favor, none opposed. Thank you. Lead Principal Evaluators Resolution. As per state law and regulations, each Board of Education must certify lead evaluators of principals. Mr. Michael Doty ensures that Acting Superintendent Dr. Tom Putnam has been trained and certified in accordance with regulation. The district utilizes BOCES, Network Team Evaluator Training and Lead Evaluator Training and certification and recertification in accordance with SED procedures and processes. Lead evaluators of principals will participate in annual training and will be recertified on an annual basis by the Board of Education. May I have a motion, please, that Dr. Putnam is hereby certified as a qualified lead evaluator of principals, having successfully completed the training requirements as prescribed by law, and that we approve this? All those in favor? 7 in favor, none opposed. Thank you. 2014-2015 calendar update. May I have a motion, please, that an additional conference day be authorized for elementary teachers on April 27, 2015, as presented? Questions or comments? I do have a question.
Yes.
How are we letting our parents know?
So, yes, great question. After this approval, we have a letter waiting in the wings to go out, but we'll also go through the building principals for their newsletters, their online newsletters for the 4 elementary schools, and we're going to do a formal letter home, and then as it gets closer, there'll be something in the Prestige, and then as it gets closer, there'll be a Connect Ed as well. So we'll try, we're not going to go with a one-time only or one way, but it'll be a multi-facet communication out so we can get everybody.
Very good. Okay, thank you. All those in favor? 7 in favor, none opposed. Thank you. President's remarks. Earlier this evening, we started with a work session regarding the veterans tax exemption. People who have been to our public hearing last month, saw a timeline where we were hoping to vote this evening on whether to adopt or not adopt the veterans tax exemption. However, this board will continue to monitor information for now, and we are postponing this adoption or non-adoption of the exemption at this time, and we're hoping that if you're interested with this, you'll stay informed about it. Also, we have an Albany visit update, and I think, Mark, you're going to give us a brief summary about it.
Yesterday, a delegation from the Monroe County School Boards Association went to Albany to meet with with representatives from the legislature and SED. 9 districts were represented, and from our district we had Ms. Babiarts, Mr. Piper, and myself, and then Dr. Putnam and Mr. Pfeiffer. With that, when we divided up into groups. We met with officials from the SED and the staff of some of the Senate and Assembly members, and then also administrative staff. The topics we talked about are the topics you hear us talk about a lot all the time, and really it's an opportunity for us to tell them what our concerns are, help them understand how their actions impact us, things like showers in the locker room. We didn't cover that, but those kinds of things. But what we really did talk about are the things we talk about a lot: gap elimination and foundation aid. And there's a lot of understanding about. They're hearing us, and they know they've got to address this issue, but they're not making any commitments. The tax cap and how the tax cap is the other half of that when it comes to funding, and how that's a problem, especially since days of low inflation lowers the basis for our tax cap calculations. The Smart Schools Technology Bond, we talked about charter schools, and some of the unintended consequences that come up, things like the pilot program and how that affects our computations for the tax cap, where they're just the gears that go on behind the scenes. They didn't understand the impact of this, but it adversely affects us in terms of our ability to use that property as part of our tax basis. And then getting understanding of what their priorities are for the upcoming year. And we'll be going back in March.
March. All right. Thank you very much, Mark, and thank you to all of you for representing Penfield so well there. I think it was nice to have such a nice group there. So, all right. And at this time, we have no unfinished business and no new business that I know of. So may I have a motion, please, that the meeting be adjourned at 9:02 p.m. Second. Questions or comments? Thank you. All those in favor? 7 in favor, none opposed. Thank you.